Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News of this Saturday, the 12th day of April, 2025. And in this second edition of Breaking News, we're going to summarize the talks that went on today in Oman between the United States and Iran with respect to Iran's nuclear program, and then another story from Gatestone as to why these talks are completely worthless. Now, the first story, we could have written this ahead of time. The headline, here it is. U.S. Iran conclude positive first round of nuclear talks to resume next week. We kid you not. This is so predictable. Now, our second headline, this is from Gatestone. Don't waste your time. Iran's mullahs will not abandon their nuclear program. We know that to be true, yet the talks go on anyway. All right, let's read the two stories. First one from the Jerusalem Post. U.S. Iran conclude positive first round of nuclear talks to resume next week. This is from also Reuters. U.S. Iran talks were focused on sanctions against the Islamic Republic and wars in the Middle East, according to the Omani source. Notice what the headline is. They're focused on sanctions against the Islamic Republic and focused on wars in the Middle East. Where's Iran's nuclear program in this discussion today? Iran and the United States finished their first round of indirect, notice indirect. Witkoff said earlier, we're not going to talk unless it's direct. Well, it's just indirect. First round of indirect high-level talks in Oman on Saturday afternoon, according to Iranian state media, with the two sides agreeing to continue talks next week. The talks were held in the capital Muscat, aimed at jump-starting negotiations over Tehran's fast-advancing nuclear program, with U.S. President Donald Trump threatening military action if there is no deal. A member of the Iran delegation was quoted by Tasnim news service as saying Tasnim news service as saying the talks with the U.S. were held in a positive atmosphere. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi led the Iranian delegation while the talks were handled on the U.S. side by Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. Iranian state media IRNA reported the two shared a direct, minutes-long conversation following the conclusion of Saturday's mediated talks. Special Envoy Witkoff underscored to Araghchi that he had instructions from President Trump to resolve our two nations' differences through dialogue and diplomacy, if that is possible, the White House said in a statement. These issues are very complicated, and Special Envoy Witkoff's direct communication today was a step forward in achieving a mutually beneficial outcome. It's hard to read this, isn't it? And because we know it's so untrue. Omani Foreign Minister Badr bin Hamad Al Busaidi wrote on the X, formerly Twitter, that the talks took place in a friendly atmosphere conducive to bridging viewpoints and ultimately achieving regional and global peace, security, and stability. Who is kidding whom here? We will continue to work together and put further efforts to assist in arriving at this goal, Busadi, who mediated in the talks, added. Now, the U.S.-Iran talks focused on sanctions, regional wars, and prisoner swaps. Now, notice this. The three topics I guess they discussed on the first time, sanctions against Iran, regional wars, I guess that's talking about Iran's wars, and prisoner swaps. I guess he's talking about prisoners between the Hamas has in Israel. Notice nothing was said about Iran's nuclear program, it seems, and nothing reported anyway. The talks were focused on de-escalating regional tensions, prisoner exchanges, and limited agreements to ease sanctions in exchange for controlling Iran's nuclear program, an Omani source told Reuters on Saturday. Indirect talks between Iran and the United States with the mediation of the Omani foreign minister. Each delegation had their separate room and exchanged messages via Oman's foreign minister, he said. So the guy ran back and forth between one room and the next. They were not direct talks at all. Tehran's influence throughout the Middle East has been severely curbed, with its regional allies, known as the Axis of Resistance, either dismantled or badly hurt since the start of the Hamas-Israel conflict in Gaza and the fall of Bashar Assad in Syria in December. And yet the problem, of course, is the nuclear program that they've worked on for years and years, enriching uranium to weapons grade, developing a missile system, a delivery system that could deliver a nuclear weapon. But that doesn't seem to be the topic of the initial discussion at all. All right. Given Iran's history, The events in Iran, this is us talking now, the events in Oman today were entirely predictable. Namely, the talks were done in a positive atmosphere with no direct talks except for a few minutes at the end, and of course, more talks slated for next week. In other words, nothing was accomplished, more time was wasted. Again, it was interesting to read the comments in the Jerusalem Post, over more than 200, about this story. And to put it mildly, nobody was impressed about what took place today. Most people were incensed that it's even taking place. In other words, as they keep saying, the time for talking is over. We know what Iran is doing, what they've been doing for 20 years, how they lie, obfuscate, and are working as hard as they can to produce a weapon that will destroy Israel, working with the delivery system that'll get it there to Jerusalem. As the Ayatollah wrote many years ago, we've mentioned this before. He wrote a book in Farsi called One Bomb, and he said, all we need is one bomb. We can get rid of Israel. And again, they seem to forget this sort of thing, or they don't seem to know, at least the present administration doesn't know the history. Now, we do have a follow-up story from the Middle East expert from Gatestone, his name Majid Rafizadeh, we quoted the other day, and he summarized the situation perfectly and the real issue at hand. And let's look at this because this is very serious stuff. Don't waste your time. Iran's mullahs will not abandon their nuclear program. Tehran has played this game before. Agree to talks, make vague promises, extract sanctions relief, then quietly continue nuclear development under the radar. This formula has worked for more than 2 decades. Right now, the only reason Iran is talking is to stall, to promise just enough to prevent America from striking it. We are almost there to keep its regime and avoid seeing the uranium centrifuges and enrichment sites blasted to rubble. The regime does not want war, but it also cannot accept total nuclear disarmament. The Islamic Republic has smoothly outmaneuvered every administration. It has accepted deals to avoid confrontation, then quietly violated them. With each round of negotiations, Iran gained what it needed: time, money, legitimacy, and gave away nothing that it could not reverse. And that's so true. Nothing that it could not reverse. Worse, Iranian officials have themselves confirmed what skeptics have long argued, that the regime's nuclear program was always military in nature. Former parliamentarian Speaker Ali Motahari openly admitted in an interview that the Islamic Republic's nuclear activities were initially designed to build weapons, not generate electricity. This was not a slip of the tongue. It was a rare moment of honesty from a system built on lies. Worse yet, the regime could announce one day, and here's the real problem, it could announce one day that it already possesses several nuclear bombs and that there is nothing anyone can do about it. Will the world then be forced to live with a nuclear armed theocracy that sponsors terrorism, oppresses its people, and seeks to export its ideology across the region? That does not sound like a very cheery future to accept. The Islamic Republic has demonstrated that it cannot be trusted to negotiate in good faith. It has lied, manipulated, and deceived at every turn. Hoping for a different outcome, unfortunately, is self-deceptive make-believe. But remember what we read earlier today about Witkoff? He did an interview with the Wall Street Journal. He said, what we're going to basically do this first round is start bringing trust for each side, try to develop some trust between us and the Iranians. There's nothing to trust from the Iranian side. Sorry, Witkoff, they're liars. Negotiations, as the article continues on, negotiations only serve to give Iran what it wants: time and space to complete its nuclear project. Axios reported on April 10th that sources said Iranians think reaching a complex and highly technical nuclear deal in 2 months is unrealistic, and they want to get more time on the clock to avoid an escalation. After watching what happened in Libya after it gave up its nuclear weapons program, and Ukraine when it gave up its warheads, Iran's regime could hardly have any intention of abandoning their quest for the bomb. Diplomacy will not stop them. Appeasement will not deter them. The only solution, sadly, seems to be force. If the U.S. and Israel fail to act now, we will soon be facing a world where the Islamic Republic of Iran has crossed the nuclear threshold and commands its bombs. Then what? Then what indeed? There should be no excuse whatsoever for a nuclear Iran to exist. None. However, if these talks continue to go on with smiles from the Iranians and agreements made by Iran that they'll do this and do that, then this is precisely what's going to happen. It is indeed a sad world out there, and according to scripture, it's only going to get worse. But thankfully, the Lord has already told us the end game. Jesus Christ returns and we will be with him forever and ever in eternal bliss. What a wonderful day that will be. Until then, it's going to be difficult times. We will continue to report what's going on. Not a bunch of good news today. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.